Hello, Legend of the Samurai here with the Australian lock company's BiLock NG. This is a driverless pin sidebar lock. It has 2 rows of 6 driverless pins, each with a false gate, and those interact with 2 sidebars, one on each side. And the NG, or new generation, adds this little interactive element on the bottom of the key, which lifts that little lever in there, and that raises up this pin in the middle up front, which actually prevents the right sidebar from falling in until it is lifted to the right height. So, picking these follows the normal procedure for false-gated sidebar locks. I'll be using a little custom tensioner that fits in this ridge on the face that applies tension to the entire faceplate rather than the little separator in between the 2 sides. And then I'll be using 2 different hooks, a shallow one for most things and a steeper one for one particular lift I can't reach with the shallow one. And I'm going to go through and try and get everything springy in its true gait. So I'll start on the right, tap a pin, and get that first pin going, and then I'll switch to the left side. 6 and 5, and then 4 is a max lift behind a 0 lift, so... that's 3, and then to make sure they all stayed set, alright, those seem good. Go back to the right side. 2, 3, 4. Now 4, 5, and 6 ping-pong quite a bit. There we go. A little bit of core rotation, so I believe that is the right side dealt with. Back to the left. Check that high pin. There's a false set, and it should just be this interactive element on the front, and we're open. And now, because this is 2 independent sidebars, it will actually relock if you continue around, but this is actually in one of the quick change core mounts, and the way that works is it uses these little dimples to provide space for a ball bearing to fall into, so if you have no key in there, there is nothing preventing, if I can find the right spot, the core from sliding forward, and if you pinch the sidebars, it'll stay relocked. So if you needed to full circle one of these, you can just spin the tailpiece with another tool, put the core back in the other direction, find the spot where it inserts, now we're over there, and we've gone full circle. Alright, so now to take it apart. So this being one of those quick change housings, a normal key functions but can't pull the core because it doesn't have those dimples. So if you take a quick change key, which has that dimple, go over to the side, these ball bearings down at the bottom can roll into the core, and they would normally ride in that groove down there and would not be able to come out. And then there are these two grooves up here, which in combination with one of the sidebar grooves allow these fixed bearings to slide out in one of two positions. Alright, so that's the housing. It just has sidebar grooves, and then this back bit rotates with the tailpiece, and that's coupled to the plug there. And as far as the actual core itself, we have two sidebars, one on either side, and then the elements are in the bottom here, so we have 6 on each row, and then that one in the front. And do this without losing a great many springs. This top cover can slide off. And there we have our element springs. And so here we can see the sliders, or the driverless pins, in place, and the sidebar fingers that push into them. And let's see if I can get these all out of here. A little tricky to remove one at a time. Alright, so that is our main elements, and you can see here we have our sidebar fingers, and this is the interactive bit. So if I insert a key that goes in, you can see that pops up out of the way, which then allows that sidebar to get pushed in all the way. And then if I release the sidebar, it'll fall back down and block it again. And that can actually be removed, because you can push these face plates out. They're very snug. But they do come off. And then we have a two-component element here. There's one part which grabs that little side piece, and then a little side piece which actually blocks the sidebar. So here's the front of our plug. The bottom, there's our two ball bearings that do the quick change, and then the sidebars are crimped in place, but you can see that all the little prongs are in fact there and full length, and they retract fully. And now for the actual sliders, or driverless pins themselves. Each one has a channel in which that pin sits to keep them from rotating, and then they all have a through hole, which is the true gate, and then they have a shallower hole, which is the false gate. And in this case, every single pin has one of those true and false gates. So this is one of the essentially zero lift pins, where if you overlift it, you fall into that false gate and it gets stuck. And here's the maximum lift one that was behind it. True gate at the very bottom, false gate above it. And then here are some of our middling lifts. The false gate below to trap oversets. And another with a false gate above that you have to work through. So on this lock, with this bitting, there are 8 pins which have the false gates above the true gates, so those had to be worked through, and only 4 of them, including 2 essentially zero lifts, have them below the true gate, so those trap oversets. Oh. Close up on these. False gates in every pin, and none of them are mastered. So, there we are. That is a BiLock new generation, specifically one of the quick change core models. They are certainly not the most straightforward locks to pick, but if you follow the feedback, you get every pin to the point where it has a little bit of wiggle room in its true gate. You can determine what the bitting needs to be, and then you just pick it until you get everything to the right place. There can be a lot of chasing things around as they ping-pong, and the tolerances are quite good, so the sidebars will almost always mix. And you'll have to bounce back and forth to get things to actually stay set. So these are a lot of fun, well worth picking one up. And as always, thanks for watching, and have a nice day.